Recording has started, thank you.
Councillor Diane Begley, Chair of the Buchan Area Committee. Welcome to the Buchan Area Committee meeting on Tuesday, 23rd of June 2026. Please note that today's meeting will be recorded. The recording will be published online after the meeting. Can I ask if any councillor has not been able to access today's agenda, please indicate via the hands up function now. Item 1, sediment. No apologies. We've got Councillor Alan Buchan joining us virtually. Good morning. Members will note that we have Fiona Stewart online, who is covering as monitoring solicitor for this committee again. Much appreciated, Fiona. Thank you. Can I ask the committee officer to do a roll call?
Can I ask if the following councillors are in attendance, please? Councillor Diane Begley.
Present.
Councillor Anne Simpson. Present. Councillor Matthew James.
Present.
Councillor Alan Buchan.
Present.
Councillor Peter Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Cruzen.
Present.
Councillor Leanne McQuinney.
Yeah.
Councillor Hannah Powell. Present. Councillor Colin Simpson.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Smith.
Here.
I can also confirm that the following officers will be in attendance this morning. Amanda Rowe, Buchan Area Manager, Fiona Stewart, Senior Solicitor, Sally Wood, Senior Planning Officer, Alan Wood, Director of Environmental and Infrastructure Services, Oliver Deeming, Principal Officer, Landscape Services, John Sibbert, Landscape Services Officer, Raymond Tennis, Project Manager, and myself, Teresa Wood, Area Committee Officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do members have any declarations of interest? Please indicate using the hands up function. For members joining virtually, can I remind you, should you intend leaving the meeting for a particular item, you should indicate that you intend doing so, as the committee officer will be required to remove you from the recording. You should not rejoin until invited back in at the conclusion of the item. Item 2A, Public Sector Equality Duty Guidance. Should any member not agree with the guidance, please indicate via the hands up function. Item 2B, Resolution. Should any member not agree to take item 11 as exempt, please indicate via the hands up function. Thank you. Members, before we start, I've got some good news stories. The North East Tartan Army are more than just football supporters. They are proud ambassadors for our communities. At the World Cup, they have played their part in showing Scotland in the best possible light. Known for their colour, humour and friendliness, they are loved by fans across the world. From organising boat trips for supporters, creating a brilliant atmosphere wherever they go. They bring people together to make every journey memorable. But it's back home where their community spirit really shines. Each Christmas, they organise toy collections, deliver gifts to sick kids. They help PFC with their Christmas meal and their hampers, helping to bring joy to families during difficult times. Whether at home or away, their passion for Scotland is matched by their kindness and commitment to others. The North East Tartan Army are a true credit to the North East and to Scotland. Thank you for your community spirit. Congratulations to Peterhead Academy Under 13 boys, who are the Aberdeenshire Secondary Schools Football Association Cup winners 25-26. Well done, boys. Great result. We are incredibly proud to share that Gregor Miller, our Senior Exercise Coordinator at Peterhead and Ellen, has been selected to represent Scotland in judo at the upcoming Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. This is an outstanding achievement and a true reflection of Greg's dedication, discipline and passion for the sport. We wish him every success as he continues this exciting journey on the international stage. Gregor, we couldn't be prouder of you. What an inspiration you are. Councillor Simpson, can I pass to you?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make mention of a couple of young people. I had the pleasure of attending the inaugural Developing Young Workforce Connect Awards last week. And the three nominations for three finalists for the Inspiring Young Person Awards were all from North schools, one from Fraserburgh Academy, one from Peterhead, and one from Nidlaw. And the young woman from Peterhead is Abby Duffus, who was involved with the Taste of Buchan campaign that the school undertook. And the young man from Nidlaw was Liam Godsman, who was involved in the ROV project. And Liam was actually the ultimate winner. So just congratulations to them all. And definitely they've done the North East, the Buchan area proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. And we would also like to wish Peterhead Central School a very happy 120th anniversary. Congratulations to the staff, community and pupils. There was a celebration event on Saturday and there is a celebration event today. So we congratulate you all. Members, can we agree to send letters of congratulations, please? Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 3, please. Draft minutes of the meeting of the 2nd of June 2026. Should any member not agree with the content of the draft minute, please indicate via the hands up function. See no indication, so move to item 4, statement of outstanding business. Can I ask Teresa Wood, committee officer, to take us through the statement of outstanding business, please? Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Chair. So if we look at the general statement first, and if we look at action 1725, we'll note that the lights are operational as of 5th of June in that one, and therefore it is recommended for removal. 226, a backdated tracker has been circulated separately to members in relation to this one. And if we go to 526, I just wanted to check as to whether members have had any update with regard to the book bug scheme to be launched in the summer and provision in Cruden Bay. If not, I will try and pursue this one. So I'll pursue that one and hope that we can get a response to that one in the next week. 626. So there was a response provided to members on the 3rd of June in relation to the first action, and the second one, as it states, to be included in social media releases, etc. So that has now happened and both are recommended for removal. 726, again, if there's been no update so far, I will pursue that one, given that members wanted it noted that it should hopefully be done with the school time. So I'll pursue that one and hopefully get a response for members in the next week or so. If we turn to the appendix with the procurement ones, 225, members were provided with an update on the 10th of June, and timelines have been amended accordingly for that one. 525, again, members received an update from the officer on 10th of June, and timelines have been amended for that one. And then 126, a very full update was provided and incorporated into this appendix, providing a full update in relation to that action there. I think that's everything so far. Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor McWhinney, please.
Sorry, did you say the backdated tracker had been sent? Because I don't remember receiving it, so I may have missed it or I never got it. So I'm just asking if it can be resent, if it has already been resent. Sent it.
I'll check, has anyone had it?
No.
Okay, in which case that has as well, and I will make sure that's done. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any further comments? I'll just comment that it's good to see the PEDX up and Buchan being used. And we'll look forward to further PEDX being added. And the Anna Ritchie pool, it's good that we all keep sight on progress there because it's very important to the school. So thank you very much. Members, we'll move to item 5, please. Planning application reference number APP 20251810. Full planning permission for erection of dwelling house at site adjacent to Westerbrae at Peterhead. We have one request to address the committee in relation to this planning application from the agent, Mr. Philip Baxter. Can I confirm that Mr. Baxter is in attendance? Welcome to the meeting of Buchan Area Committee. For your information, I can confirm that we have 10 members of the Buchan Area Committee in attendance today. In line with the Council's procedure, I am now going to confirm that the committee wish to hear your representation. I will then ask Senior Planning Officer Sally Wood to present the planning application before asking you to address the committee. When you're invited to speak, you'll be given 5 minutes to put forward your representation. After that, members may ask questions. Thank you. Committee members, should a member not agree to hear the representation, please indicate via the hands up function. Sally, good morning. Can I ask you to present the report, please?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jen. So this application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a dwelling adjacent to Westerbray, Hatton. It's located in the countryside, as shown in slide 2, approximately 1.2 kilometres south of the village of Hatton. The site is greenfield agricultural land, and it's located within the accessible rural area, and it's accessed via a private track on the A90. Now showing slide 4, which is the block plan that shows the layout of the dwelling house. The proposal itself is a single story, so it's a bungalow with associated services, including public water connection and private foul and surface water drainage. Slide 5 shows the style of property that's being applied for, and it's a full planning application. And slide 6 just shows you the floor plan there. The application is before committee following consultation with the local ward members, as cited in section 1 of the committee report. The key issues are that the planning history, and sort of expired permissions. Members will note that there is an extensive planning history here, and that planning permission in principle was granted in October 2017. Which followed approval of matters specified in conditions in August 2020. And this is a critical element here, is that the planning permission has expired. It should be noted that it actually expired March 23, not August as cited in the paper, but it was still nonetheless 2023, and that's due to the COVID extension. It would typically have expired in August 2022, but members may recall that during COVID there was sort of emergency periods and things like that that did add additional time to permissions. The application, however, has not demonstrated that a lawful or timid start was made to preserve that planning permission before it expired in March 23. And as a result, the planning authority therefore must treat this as a new planning application, not as an extant planning permission, and therefore the principle of development is no longer established and therefore must be reassessed against the current development plan. I think it's important to clarify tonight that if the applicant does believe that the works were started lawfully on the site, that the correct mechanism is to apply for a certificate of lawfulness, and this has been advised, and that would allow that matter to be formally tested and verified. But at present, there is no such application that's been submitted, and there is no evidence before the planning authority that a lawful permission does exist. Since that original planning permission was granted in 2017, the position has changed significantly with regards to the development plan. Should be aware NPF4 and the local development plan 2023 are both now in force. And under these current policies, this site is an unallocated greenfield land within the accessible rural area, and there's a presumption against new housing unless strict criteria is met. And this proposal fails to meet any of those exceptions listed under NPF4 policy 17 and under policy R2 of the local development plan. Therefore, the principle of development is not supported under the current development plan, and as such, the application is in conflict in terms of principle. There are other planning considerations as well, and members may note that the design of the bungalow itself is generally acceptable in isolation, but there are other considerations, and these principally relate to sustainability concerns due to reliance on a private car and limited connectivity, outdated drainage information submitted, which it's dated 2017, and insufficient detail on landscaping and biodiversity net gain. So showing you just a slide 7, that's looking northeast across that application site. And slide 8, and I said 18, sorry, slide 8 is the location, approximate location of where the soakaway is proposed. Slide 9 is looking northeast across the site, and slide 10 is looking northwest along the access road. The application site is just on the right there, behind the fence line. And slide 11, again looking east, and that's one of the neighbouring properties, the one to the southeast. And looking southeast along the access road with the application site on the left. Summarise, the principle of development is not established and it is contrary to the current development plan, and the application is recommended for refusal. The planning service would advise that the planning history has little weight, well, no weight given the length of time that has elapsed since 2017 since the planning permission was granted, and noting the fundamental changes in policy. The site is greenfield and in the accessible rural area where new housing is only supported in limited circumstances, and the proposal doesn't meet any of those exceptions. The site is remote from services and lacks safe non-vehicle access, meaning that future occupants would be reliant on the private car, which is also a consideration of NPF4 and the local development plan. As a result, it doesn't support sustainable development or reduce emissions. The drainage information submitted is outdated. It relates to the planning permission in principle rather than the current application. So the applications failed to demonstrate that development can be adequately serviced to the current standards. And finally, it provides insufficient detail on landscaping and biodiversity enhancement, and therefore fails to demonstrate compliance with those policies that require biodiversity net gain and appropriate site design. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Members, any questions for the senior planning officer, please? Councillor Smith, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I just clarify? So that there was an error in the papers. Sorry, I didn't quite catch what was said about the expiry date. Can we just get some clarity on that? Because I was going on the information supplied to us in the papers.
It is just that the application expired March 23 as opposed to August 23. The planning permission in the overall planning permission in principle.
Okay, thanks. There was, again, apologies if I picked this up incorrectly. There was mention of COVID extensions, but that's a reduction on the time that's stated in the paper. So I'm a bit confused.
Sorry, I can clarify. So ordinarily, a planning permission is granted for a period of 3 years, which the matters specified in conditions must be submitted by. And in this case, the planning permission in principle was granted in 2017, and the matter specified in conditions was approved in 2020. A matter specified in conditions at that time would have had 2 years in which to implement the planning permission for it to be live. So it ordinarily would have expired in August 2022. I think that's where the confusions arise in the report. So I do apologise for that. But COVID did extend some permissions between March 2020 and September 2022. So any applications that were due to expire got a further extension. So overall, the planning permission expired in March 2023, not August. So it was a COVID that gave it an extra 6 months, but it was till March 2023. We extended it from August 2022 to March 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman, please.
Yes, so Sally, you showed us some photographs there of the site, and there was no sign of any access being formed, but we have seen photographs from the agent showing an access formed, hardcore down, and obviously works taking place at the entrance to the site. So what's the current situation there? Is it as you showed, or is it as the agent showed in his photos?
I seek legal advice here because I'm concerned that there's been some information that's been presented to members as a part of their planning application.
Fiona?
Yes, members, you are only entitled to make a decision based on the information in front of you. Anything that has been circulated by the applicant that separate to this report does not form part of this report and cannot be taken into account.
You?
Yeah.
Ali, do you want to come back?
Thank you. What I would advise is that the agent has been advised to make a certificate of lawfulness in order to clarify the legal position on the application. We always invite in these moments information to support whether a lawful permission remains or not, whether a permission is extant. We typically that should be through a certificate of lawfulness, but it is a material consideration when dealing with such applications. And in this case, and it's similar to what we've applied elsewhere, where they fail to meet that sufficient evidence, then we have to advise that certificate of lawfulness is necessary, because that's the only way that we can test it, and it's a matter of fact. And that information has not been presented to planning service in a way that's on the balance of probability. Planning permission has been implemented, and therefore an extant permission exists. The key test is the lawful permission, and that respects of several tests, and that really doesn't form part of this application. The application has to be determined on its own merits under the policies that within the development plan. I hope that helps provide some clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. It was just following on to Councillor Chapman's point. My interpretation of slides 9 and 11 was that there appeared to be an access informed there, albeit there's a lot of vegetation, but then it's excellent conditions at the minute for having a lot of vegetation grew up quite rapidly. But that was certainly my interpretation of what I saw being presented by the planner.
Sally?
Development must meet key tests in order to be extant, and the application has failed to demonstrate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See no further indications from Sally. Mr. Baxter, can I invite you to address committee? As usual, Mr. Baxter, you've got 5 minutes. I'll give you a shout in 4.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to address the committee. To give you a brief history of the site, my client, who is the farmer, bought the farmland from another farmer who previously obtained detailed plan permission, as noted in the report for the site on the 8th of August 2020. That was which is referred to the report APP 2020-19-23. The approval was for a 1.5 story dwelling house and attached double garage to the west. The applicant then made a start to the site by getting his own workers to remove the fence and gain entry to the site at the end of March 2023, and then when they were mugspread in that area in the adjacent fields. He also employed a civil works contractor to install a proper hardcore road access at the beginning of May, and that was the photographs which would also have been sent to the planning department back then of the access being formed. So that's why you see the access as being like a new and fresh, and today it's overgrown because it's a couple of years has passed, or more than a couple of years have passed. So we didn't receive any response back then when we sent photographs of the access being formed. We didn't receive any response to this from the planning department, but I believe that is a pretty standard policy when you submit start forms, etc., to the planning department. You don't get any responses back. So the applicant maintained that he could have just gone ahead and built the house as it was. That's approved as nobody had said anything and advised them otherwise from the council. However, the design of the house did not suit the site, as the garage was positioned to the west of the house, which is where the best views are, and also restricting sunlight into the most habitable areas of the property. The garage position would have had an impact on the amenity and carbon footprint of the dwelling. It was therefore decided to apply for a dwelling that was more suited to the site to maximise the views and sunlight, by locating the public rooms to the west and the garage to the east. This is in accordance with policy 1 and 2 of NPF 4. My client submitted a building warrant for the change of house in the 31st January 2023 and paid a £1,400 building warrant fee, again well before the expiry date of the original planning approval. Item 4.2 of the report regarding the road comments and the visible display of the proposed plate was shown as the same distance that was previously approved. So we had just adopted this. I was not aware that the road department had a comment on this until I saw the agenda. At item 6.7, we do feel that we have demonstrated a timeless start, as mentioned above, as we provided timesheets, invoices, and photos of the start of works, and also have submitted a building warrant. Item 6.1 regarding design of the dwelling house, we feel we have improved the design of the original approved dwelling by taking the surrounding landscape into consideration and reducing the proposed dwelling's carbon footprint by making more use of the sunlight in the most habitable rooms and therefore reducing its energy requirements. Solar panels have also been installed to the south elevation. A SAP calculation has been submitted with this application to satisfy policy C1 of the LDP and policy 1 and 2 of NPF 4. The SAP calculation is a heat loss calculation, but it was prepared for the building warrant. Regards item 6.13, we have submitted a landscaping and biodiversity plan, as this is shown on drawings P1 of the application. I take a bit exception to the statement that this proposal has failed to meet these requirements, as firstly, other similar landscaping and biodiversity plans have been accepted by the council And secondly, I was never told that the submitted plans required modification. With regards to policy 15 of NBR4, which refers to local living at 20-minute neighbourhoods, the planner confirms in item 6.14 that these proposals comply with this policy. So as the house has been approved through building one of the solar panels and electric vehicle charging point, there is no reason to suggest that the owner can't have a minimal carbon footprint, as they're only 1.2 kilometres or 1.5 miles from Hutton. And so I would suggest that the proposal also meets with policy 1 of NPF4. Finally, with regard to item 6.2, the report and the spec of us providing up-to-date drainage tests, we used the original drainage test as approved with the first house. This is acceptable practice by building control, as there is nothing to suggest that the ground conditions could have changed over 5 years. The building work drainage proposals were approved on this basis, and in any event, we never asked to supply revised drainage proposals as I could have supplied evidence from building control that this was not necessary. It was only until I read the report that I had found that they had commented on this. In short, feel that written and photographic evidence we have provided, all the legal start was made. Also, the new house type was clearly a betterment from that was originally approved, so far as it will have a reduced carbon footprint and better vista than the previous dwelling. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Baxter, please? Councillor James.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to seek absolute clarity, Mr. Baxter, you mentioned the start form being lodged. So it was lodged in, if you could let me know the date that was lodged, please, and you said there was accompanying evidence of the start was provided at that point.
We would have had sorry, Chair, we would have had start forms sent at the beginning of the works, and I think there was also an additional notification sent when the road access was formed as well.
So you lodged your planning start forms prior to the expiry date?
Yes.
And then provided additional evidence after that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further questions for Mr. Baxter? Councillor Chapman, please.
Yeah, I mean, you confirmed to Councillor James that you put in paperwork regarding the start to the site. But we've heard from a planner here that what you actually needed was a certificate of lawfulness. So was that, has that been done?
Please just come in.
No, the reason that the certificate of lawfulness hasn't been done is I've done 1 or 2 certificate of lawfulnesses in the past. And they seem to be fraught with all the difficulties because you never seem to be able to, whatever information you produce, you never seem to be able to prove the information that the planners are always looking for. To give you an example, just down the road from the site, there's a workshop just 200 yards down from the site. It's been operating for 20 years. The workshop, and I provided 20 years of invoices and information proving that it had started. And I had questions that I had difficulty. Eventually it was approved, but I had difficulty getting a workshop that had been established for 20 years. 100-odd pages of invoices to the planner. So I find it is a certificate of lawful use is a difficult process that I don't know if there's any real information apart from the planner that actually visited the site at the time to prove that a legal start was made, because I was asked to submit invoices and receipts and evidence, and then I'm told that the invoice and receipt evidence are probably not worth the paper they're written on. So I struggle with that. So I just have to apply for planning permission, give the evidence I have, and then they deal with that, because I find the certificate of lawful process is fraught with difficulties.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. Just in a similar vein, you mentioned building standards and that fee, £1,400 or so, had been paid. Building standards as part of planning, so presumably, planning department has received that money and would have issued a receipt for it, and that would have been within times of the written outline plan.
Yes, that would be correct. The building warrant was received in January, so it was well before any expiry date, and a £1,393.60, whatever it is, the actual payment. And there was a receipt of that payment as well in the file, but a building warrant was submitted receipt before the expiry.
Very much. Mr. Baxter, thank you for your representation. Sally?
I'd say, or maybe legal can have comment, but it was just to clarify that the original planning permission in principle 2017 actually did have a notice of initiation. And on that form, it said that work started on the 11th of July 2023, and it was signed by the applicant, Mr. Grubb, on the 11th of July 2023, which is after the planning permission had expired. And then amended forms came in with the more latest application, but it's still material in fact that planning permission has expired. Also, I don't think we can refer to difficulties of a workshop and 100 pages of invoices. I'm not seeing a certificate of lawfulness, a company with 100 pages of invoices yet. But what I would say is that ordinarily a certificate of lawfulness is actually an easy process if you've got the evidence that you can demonstrate on the balance of probability. So we have certain tests to meet, and agents are usually generally aware of that, and it's prescribed within the planning legislation as well. I'd also like to just say that the building warrant submission is totally relevant in terms of the planning permission. Planning legislation and building standards are a completely separate regime, but actually as a duty of service to the applicant and the agent, we also checked that file as well. And there's no evidence of any works having started. It was just that the application had been submitted, not the works had started. I also want to just say in terms of a notice of initiation, that's an intention to develop, not necessarily the development will start as well. There are many instances where certificate of lawfulness is very successful because the information that accompanies the application. Those that might prove more challenging is where actually the evidence is just not there. So I just wanted to clear those points up. I perhaps maybe defer to legal here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take Fiona in now.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to support what the planner has said in terms of the building one. It's not relevant to the application, separate tests and separate legislation. And in relation to the agent's explanation of why a certificate of lawfulness has not been applied, regardless of whether the agent likes the process or not, it is a legal process under the Act and should have been applied for in the normal process. And the fact is that in this case, it has not been applied for.
Thank you. Take Councillor James, please.
If I say, am I okay to query something that Sally just took us through? Sally, you mentioned about the start form was received in July 2023. I think the agent spoke with about accompanying evidence at that point. But do you have any record if that did accompany the start form? And if so, how would that have been treated at the time? Thank you.
We'll just give you a moment to allow you to see if you can access it.
Hang on. So I've opened up the planning permission in principle 2017-2265, and of course this is sort of background correspondence, but the agent is fully aware. Is that okay? Legal on that basis to carry on.
Is it acceptable for Councillor James's question to be answered by Sally?
Yes, it is acceptable. And if there are any further questions that you feel the agent needs to answer after this, then you would be able to put them to the agent as well for fairness on both sides.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to check first. So accompanying that email dated 11th of July 2023, which was signed by the applicant that works intended to start on 11th of July 2023, dated 11th of July 2023, was also an email from the agent, also dated 11th of 2023, received in the afternoon at 14, 2:20 in the afternoon. I enclosed the start form and photos and location of the works, and as a freshly late access, which would suggest it was around that time. We do ask, we do let applicants know what the assessment is in terms of application and give them an opportunity to respond back to that. But there hasn't been any information which supports that that didn't start before the application expired in March 23. We also check like aerial photographs, we check building warrant details. We go and have our own look as well to try and ascertain if we can support such an application as well. But the evidence before us does suggest that the work started after the permission had expired, and we have to go by that. So then we asked for additional information. So the agent submitted timesheets under the current application, but it didn't tie it to this particular site at all. It was 1 week of works, 27th to the 31st of March. And it was 2 employees that done some work, but we don't know what that work was or what that might be. Because again, there's also a difference between sort of works that might be agriculture related and work specifically for the implementation of a planning permission. But what I would say is that's a separate, almost a separate matter from this, because the advice is that there is no extant planning permission. That's the position. There's no can't disagree with that. So the application then must be determined against the development plan. I hope that helps.
Councillor Smith, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just prompted by Councillor James's question. If we're saying there was paperwork submitted which is dated July 2023, given that the committee report and the members have been furnished with an incorrect expiry date of August 2023, what level of confidence can we attach to that date not having been circulating elsewhere, including to applicants and agents? Are we confident that that did not happen?
Fiona, please.
I would say that that's not relevant. The official position is that the previous planning consent expired. There is no certificate of lawful use. The dates have been corrected by the planning officer in the report, and those are the dates that the committee must take into account.
Powell?
Very similar question. If we're told we can only judge on what's in front of us, legally does that still stand? The planner corrects it, even though it's not on the paper, and we're no longer taking what's in front of us. Does that still stand? What you
A correction, Chair, a correction has been made to the report today. Therefore, that correction stands, amending the report before you. So that amended date is the one that the committee must take into account. Thank you, Chair.
Sally?
I would also advise that the agent was informed not long after we received that our records indicate that the previous permission expired on the 31st of March 2023. The application form you submitted and signed states that the works commenced on the site on the 11th of July 2023. As such, a principal development under the current application will need to be reassessed in light of the above. We're unable to support the application. So, oh no, I apologise. That is actually date 2025, but we did throughout this recognise that the permission had expired on 31st March 2023. The agent was aware it was March 2023. Also, lots of correspondence went out to agents by the planning service as well in terms of the COVID extension dates, to make it very clear as well. Thank you.
Okay. Members, anything further? Councillor James?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, just one further thing in terms of the correspondence that Sally took us through around the 11th of July. Typically on submission of these forms, is there an acceptance that goes back out to agents to say that yes, that has been accepted as legal start, or is it just typically filed and that's it?
The onus is on the applicant and the agent. It's not on us. It's part of the planning legislation that the notice of initiation should be submitted. So that's just part and parcel of what's enshrined in planning legislation. But the key element really for us is not just the notice of initiation, which say this date was a couple of months after, but also, you know, for applicants' agents to satisfy themselves that it can demonstrate a lawful permission has implemented. The onus isn't on the planning authority to demonstrate, the onus is on the applicant agent to demonstrate that in all cases such as this.
Councillor Powell.
Just a final point, I should have asked Sally when we had the chance actually earlier, but regarding photos, if there was a start made 3 years ago, how old are the photos that we've got in the presentation, or is it a duty of our own to have up-to-date photos?
They are up-to-date photos. The photos that I'm referring to back in July 23, sorry, I'm getting confused. July 23 are really fresh. Like you can tell it's just been scooped, as in the access has just been formed. The photographs that you're shown in the PowerPoint is overgrown. So they are up-to-date photographs that you're being shown on the PowerPoint presentation before you today.
Councillor Crewson.
Thanks, yeah. I'm just always getting a bit mixed up with the site history when it says the actually the site history and account for this application. Is there a time scale in that, or is that a sort of perspective thing, or is it purely whether there is still previous planning history alive on the site or not? Or not? Or legal?
Materiality comes down to weight of all the material planning considerations. So planning history is always a material consideration, but it's how much weight you apply. 2017 planning permission is almost 9 years old. Development plan has changed quite significantly then as well. So in the accessible rural area, it's become more tightly controlled because of to prevent the urban sprawl that's sort of been happening with the isolated houses in the countryside and the impact that that has. So that's not just from terms of the local development plan, it's also the thrust in terms of the NPF4. So both, you know, the plans which form the development plan. So I'd say it has no weighting because of the length of time that has elapsed. But again, you might wish to seek advice from legal on that.
Would you like to assist?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand Councillor Crowson's question there, but in response to what Sally has said, the planning service has clearly stated in the report that the previous planning consent has expired, and that there is limited weight that you can attach to that, because you have to consider this essentially as if that planning application had not existed against the current policies and under the LDP and the national policy. So there is very limited, if in fact no weight, that you can attach to the previous planning consent in your deliberations against the current policies which are outlined in the report. I think that answers what you asked, but I wasn't quite clear on exactly what you were asking, Councillor Crowson.
Crewson?
Well, but just given that answers I'm getting, so it seems to me it's up to us whether we think there is still material thinking in the planning history. In that explanation that was given, there was talk about limited weight, which then changed into no weight. So there's obviously a bit of play there. I'm not saying we should. I'm just trying to clarify the position on what's putting in front of us. And given the NPF4 came out in May, was it May? No, February 2023. And we already have concerns around NPF4 and how it suits into the rural landscape. and a housing emergency was declared in May 24, which wouldn't have been taken into account in the MPF, then I think that could give weight to the planning history of the site that was previously accepted for a house. So to turn that into a question, is that illegal or just stands to take? To give the previous site consideration.
Okay, Fiona, is there clear enough there?
I'm not clear where Councillor Crowson is coming in with a planning an emergency, and whether there are concerns about NPF4 or not. It is a national legal requirement. You have to weigh up the application against the policy set out in NPF4 and in the LDP, but housing emergencies does not come in to this report, Councillor Crowson, so that it would be an irrelevant factor. You've got to look at the policies that the planning service has brought within the report and the criteria set out in those policies. And if you don't agree with the recommendations of the planning service, you would have to come up with planning reasons to justify a departure to the policy requirements in order to go against the recommendations, because the recommendations of the planning service here are that this application does not meet the policy requirements. So it would be a departure to policy if you are minded to do anything other than go with the officer recommendation, but your reasoning must be based on the relevant policies as set out in the report, which would include NPF4, whether you as an individual councillor trust NPF4 or not. It is a legal requirement and you have to take that into account.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping too far ahead there because I haven't made a decision in this yet. It was merely if my point meant that we could consider the previous planning history that's before us.
And I've already given advice on that, as has the planning officer.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? As the legal has indicated, there is an opportunity to ask the agent any questions at this point as well. Let's see. Indications. So before we go on to consider this application further, can I confirm that members are satisfied that they have received all the necessary information and feel able to participate in the determination of this application? If not, please indicate via the hands up function. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the debate. To debate the application before we consider any motions. Now, are there any comments, views that members wish to make for us to consider? General views, members, please. Okay, I see no Councillor Crowson, hands up.
Apologies, I couldn't get.
That's okay.
Yeah, thanks. Just my only concerns was that when you look at the history of the site, that has previously been accepted for a property to be on there before, and some of the reasons given to the stuff, the protecting the rural area and not just now for sporadic development, but it couldn't be sporadic if it's going in a place that's previously been accepted. Understand that the plant's saying different things now, but that's to protect future stuff. But it's just that sort of one point there that I'm a little bit confused with. Still not making an opinion here about it. Just didn't know anybody else had any views on that sort of. I think that was making that.
Fiona?
I'm still
Yes.
not clear on what councillor Crowson is actually looking for here. I mean, the planning officer made it plain that the previous planning consent has expired, and that this application has to be considered of new against the provisions of NPF4 and the provisions of the LDP, and that the planning service view is that it does not accord with any of those criteria, and that there's, in the planning officer's view, little weight you can attach to the previous consent because it was dealt with under a different policy. And in my view, no weight should be attached to that because you're dealing with this under different policy criteria. So I'm not sure still what councillor Crowson is looking for here.
Councillor Crowson, did that clear anything up for you?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't looking for any more clarification. It was colleagues' views on that part of it.
Okay, we'll take councillor James then.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, I a bit degree of sympathy with councillor Crowson's view on this, to be honest. Legal officers frankly clarified the position in terms of what the planner has laid out in the report. In terms of the weight that the planning service have apportioned to the previous planning history. And I think I'm the opinion it's up to us to determine how much weight that we apply to that as a committee. We could consider that when this application went in, it was under the previous development plan. Obviously, that's not the policies that we're considering this against now, and I think that's important to bear in mind. But I always look at these things in a little bit of the view that the new development plan that we are now working under was built under the basis of these sites being available. The housing availability across the Shire was built off of the basis of approved sites like this. And that's certainly something that's in the back of my mind. I mean, the time frame we're looking at in terms of its expiry is quite frustrating. I think it's very valid to point out that there are different routes to ensure that an extant permission is determined to be live, providing evidence through a certificate of lawfulness process. I think that's fair to point out. But you know, councillor Crowson asked for what the views were. That's my view on that relevant planning necessary point from a materiality point of view, and it's something that's weighing on my mind. Thank you.
Members, do we have any further comments or views? Councillor Simpson?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused that the original expiry date was August. But work had started prior to that. So does that not carry any weight?
I'll lay back to the dates, please. Mark?
So I suppose I'd term it as planning permission in principle is like an umbrella. So the planning application was granted. Oh my goodness, I have to check back to my notes. I'm so sorry. Planning permission was granted, yet August 2017. Planning permission in principle was granted 2017, which formed an umbrella. And under that umbrella, the matters specified in conditions must comply under that umbrella. Can't go out, they have to be right in underneath. And all those have to be purified and work started before the expiration of March 2023. I think that's the simplest I can put it. The planning permission granted 2017. Matter specified condition fit within that network that meant overall, in terms of matter specified condition, expired March 2023. But the original planning permission was 2020. Hope that's.
It's July 23 that it works.
And the notice of initiation that was signed under that, for that umbrella, the overarching umbrella, was dated July 2023, which was 4 months after, effectively 4 months after that permission had expired. Does that
clarify, clarify.
Is that helpful or something?
Well, I'm still confused because it says granted 18th of August 2020, expired 17th of August 2023.
And I think that was right at the beginning. Sally pointed out that there was an error in the report. And Fiona has cleared up that
I know.
due to the fact that Sally corrected it in committee that it stands. Is that correct?
But I think I know what the issue is. So it comes back down to the types of different applications. So if I go back to the report. So APP 2017-265 was the umbrella. And it was granted October 2017. Then we had an application for matters specified in condition under that umbrella, which was granted in 2020, and that's what you're asking. So that was granted in 2020 because it was submitted before the planning permission in principle expired. And that matters that fitted under that umbrella expired March 2023. There was another application submitted in 2025 prior to this one, but it was withdrawn to allow the applicant and agent additional time to provide the necessary evidence, which didn't meet the criteria. But that's the dates, if that helps Councillor Simpson. That's why there's two dates in the report. 2017 is the umbrella and 2020 1293 is the matters that fit under that in terms of the matters specified in condition.
Councillor McWhinney, please.
I don't know if I'm going to help this and make it worse, but I think what I'm really struggling with is we're told we have to make a decision on what's in front of us. But then I appreciate that you've clarified that it was an actual date, but it's really confusing me that we're being told we've got to go on what's in front of us, but if the planners come in and change it, then I'm not putting this in a very good way because I'm trying to put it in my own brain, but I'm confused about, is it what's in front of us or is it what we're told on the day? Because it's really quite, my mind's just fried with, to be honest.
I'm seeking legal. We had the statement that before we consider this application, members are satisfied they've received all the information, which we are, but there's still some questions. So Sally, would you like to answer Councillor McWhinney's? Oh, Fiona.
I would just like to say that officers are human. We make mistakes, and it is frequent at area committees and indeed policy committees that officers will correct errors in the reports, and that is accepted by committees as a standard practice for officers to be honest where errors have been made in the report and correct those. So the corrected information is what you need to take into account as part of the report that you have in front of you. So you read the corrected information in place of the incorrect information that's printed in the report. It's a standard practice for this to happen at committees. It's not unique to this application.
Sorry, it's my awkward way of trying to say things. My brain's going mush. I get what you're saying, and I get that mistakes happen. There just seems to be, I understand where the mistakes have came from and what is happening, but there seems to be a confusion between the planning department and the agent, and the agent thought there was still in planning. What's that word, to extent or whatever it is? Sorry, my mind's going. So that's a bit, it's confusing me because there seems to be a bit of confusion between planning department saying March and the agent thinking it was still live. So that's the bit it confuses me, just because there is two different versions of.
Yeah.
So the 3 year, oh sorry Chair, is that okay? Sorry Chair.
I'll take Fiona in and then I'll take you in, Sally. Sorry.
I apologize.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say for Councillor McWhinney's benefit that one of the members did question that in the question period, and that Sally did confirm that the applicant and the agent had been given notice of the amended date. If that's helpful, perhaps Chair, you would want Sally to review that, but certainly it was asked by one of the members and it was clarified by Sally that information had gone out about the correction in the date to the applicant and the agent as part of the question session.
Sally, can you reiterate, please?
What I would say is this is solely an error in terms of the month cited in the committee report. There wasn't an error in handling the application itself in terms of the dates of the planning permission expiry overall with the work starting. So there's no errors being conveyed to the agent. It's just the error in terms of the content of the committee report. Said saying August, said instead of saying August, it should have said March. But what I would say to you as well is that the principles overall still remain the same, that there isn't an extant planning permission on the site. So although that may have caused some confusion, that it should have said March, not August 23, the overall argument still remains the same, and the agent hasn't been misinformed in terms of how we've dealt with things before this committee paper came, and it is literally the same, that the permission had expired.
Councillor McWhinney?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, members. I had general views. Do we have any motions coming forward? Councillor Smith, please.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. So I think we've given this trailer, that's what we do going over. As Councillor James said, you know, it's kind of up to us how much materiality we decide to attach to that. I think, you know, it's been demonstrated, you know, that there's a history on the site, previous applications and so on. Listened carefully to what Mr. Baxter said in terms of information that had been submitted. I think there was invoices and photos and timesheets and so on, and also a fee paid to the council, albeit that was to build standards, which are not is stands separate from natural planning. However, looking at the reasons for usal, I would be minded to approval on the basis that policies in accordance with NPF 4 policy 17 and R2 of the local development plan as it's located on an established development site. I think it's well established now that that is an established site. The report states it complies with policy 15 of NPF 4 on 20-minute neighbourhoods, which I think deals with that issue. Bullet point 2, I would say the proposal complies with policy 1 and 2 of NPF 4 as the dwelling is to be fitted with solar panels and an EV charging point as per the building warrant approval and is within walking distance of a bus route. It therefore can have a carbon negative footprint for accessing adjacent facilities in Hatton. And again, the report states it complies with policy 15 of NPF 4 on 20-minute neighbourhoods. As regards points 3 and 4, the need for an updated drainage report, I think that along with details of landscaping and biodiversity in point 4, I think, you know, these things can be conditioned to be submitted and dealt with by the planners. So I'd be motion on that basis, Chair, and seconder.
Thank you. So I'll just seek legal that you are content with the motion, please, Fiona.
I'm not sure that you can use the building warrant as part of your reasoning because it doesn't form part of this paper and the members have not seen what that application contains. I'm also not sure, Councillor Smith, that when Mr. Baxter spoke about invoices and photos related to this application. I believe it had referred to another application and was a reason why he was reluctant to apply for certificates of lawfulness. So perhaps you might want to amend that. Also, I would give consideration as well as to whether or not this is an established site, given that the previous planning consent has expired and evidence of work is in doubt. So if you could review those, and also I would be seeking clarification that your indication at the moment is you're saying it complies with policy. I would be seeking evidence to justify a departure to policy here. And the further advice I would give is if you are seeking to grant, it'd be a delegated grant. And if none of the conditions can be met, it would be brought back to committee in the future. So that would be my concerns at the moment with Councillor Smith's proposed motion.
Smith, quite an extensive list.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yeah, apologies. The reference to invoices and timesheets, I think that was in a preamble before I got to the motion. I didn't think I was actually including that those items in the motion itself. The building warrant, I think I only mentioned that because it's mentioned in point 3 in connection with the drainage system, but if my recollection is wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. As I said, I'd be happy for the drainage issues to be matters to be resolved. A delegated grant, as Ms. Stewart said, cover that. In terms of evidence of the work, therefore needing it to be an established site, I'm content with the information forward to the committee that we've held this morning, that there's enough evidence that there is work started on the site, and therefore it is an established site. Just anything, seek guidance again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Fiona, take your return on that one.
I'm happy to go with that at the moment, and we'll see what develops, Chair.
Councillor Fenn visiting us. Thank you, Fiona.
Sorry. And yes, of course, accept it's a delegated grant. I'm not sure I said that. Okay.
That's noted. Yes, we are content with the motion. We now seek a seconder. Councillor Simpson, please call it.
I'm quite happy to second that motion on the day that I've made it so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any amendments, please? I see no indication. Therefore, the motion is carried. So that brings the committee to the recommendation is grant full planning permission for a delegated grant planning permission for the reasons given by Councillor Smith.
Can I just come in quickly, Chair?
Please do.
Under the scheme of governance, the certificate of lawfulness for extant sites is delegated to officers. It's not something that sits within the committee's remit. So perhaps Councillor Smith wants to reword that part of the motion in relation to, yes, it's a greenfield site, but you're satisfied that there's evidence that work has started, or word it slightly differently without using the word extant, so that you're not in conflict with the scheme of governance, just to keep you within the powers that the committee has. So perhaps that's where your weight on planning history could come in, Councillor Smith. rather than
Please,
saying it's an
Councillor Smith.
existing or extant site.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that helpful clarification. So if I say the committee is satisfied on the balance of the evidence presented, sorry, I'm trying to remember what you said now, that work had commenced on the site.
Yeah,
does that cover it?
Yeah, and that given the planning history of this is where, although I've said you can't put any weight on the previous planning history, this is where what you said in your discussion about relying on the planning history, that there's previous approval for housing on that site would be relevant here. And my apologies if you heard the dog barking through that.
So are we content? Legal, are we content?
I'm content if Councillor Smith's happy to use that. There's the evidence that you're putting weight on evidence of work having started, and that given the planning history of previous approval, that you your motion is so moved, rather than using the word extant, which is contrary. So if you're happy with that, Councillor Smith, and your second is happy with that, I would prefer that wording rather than the wording that you put forward, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thanks, if that's acceptable, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Smith is accepting it. Councillor Simpson, accepting it. Okay, thank you very much. So the committee agreed to delegate to the head of planning for full planning permission for the reasons given and the relevant conditions. Am I there, Fiona?
Oh.
Sally. Who's coming in?
Can I clarify? So what we normally do in this situation is delegate grant for conditions, yes. But we would also delegate the details to be submitted to the planning authority for the planning authority to review and effectively approve. So we'd look for an updated drainage details and to address the other matters. Fiona?
Yeah, I actually thought that
Established.
I thought Councillor Smith had included that in his motion, Sally. So I was taking that as read, Chair.
This is just for the summing up. I apologise. I just was making sure it wasn't conditioning the drainage, for example, that it was taking those details up front, but delegated to the planning service rather than having to come back to committee.
But I think that's the word, to delegate it to the head of planning for full planning permission for the reasons given and the relevant conditions attached. Is that right?
That wouldn't be a condition, Chair. That would be, as Sally said, number 3, for an updated drainage report to be submitted and assessed, rather than a condition of grant. But that's what Councillor Smith indicated in his motion, so I was happy with that. And it would be the same for item 4. So it's covered in the motion, Chair. It just wouldn't be referred to as a condition.
I'm unclear what the recommendation, the wording that you want me to use. I'm required to use.
Right, the recommendation would be to delegate a grant to the head of planning services for the reasons given, with a delegation to the planning service or head of planning service to seek updated reports to comply with recommendations 3 and 4 to be assessed. And if those are lacking, the planning service would bring those back to committee in future.
Thank you very much. So are we all content now? Very complicated recommendation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your guidance, Fiona. Okay. Members, would you like a short break? It's very hot. Can we take a 10-minute break? Come back at 11:25. Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Take a 10-minute break. Please, I can stop recording.